Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, my bar rats. Yes, it is time for the bar rats to assemble once more for another week here on the RickCast. Who am I? I am Rick, the host of RickCast. I'm also the founder, the only Catholic Pro 2A group in these United States. I'm also an author of The Armed Catholic, The Catholic Case for Guns and Self-Defense, which you can get on Amazon.com right now. And I'm what I generally like to call myself, a blue-collar Catholic. And I'm very happy that you're all taking the time to hang out with me on this beautiful Monday, February 24th, 2025. And we got things to talk about. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. Things are just kind of scattershotting all over the place. And it's kind of hard to narrow down four things, especially if I don't want them to be just about politics. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of political stuff that's going on right now with the Ukraine war, and then Trump with Macron, all these other kinds of things that are happening, and then all these other peripheral things. I talked about the Ashley Sinclair story when it was fresh and relevant, i.e. when it happened. There's been follow-up stories. Like Laura Loomer is just like a dog on a bone on this story. She's just gnawing this thing to death. And that's not for me. It's baby mama drama and a little bit of advice. Don't dip the wick in crazy. That's as clean as I can say it. And that's the first thing I can give you for advice. And the second thing I can give you is that's why God says, do not fornicate before marriage. Because this is what happens. It's a classic example. So I have no interest in talking about Ashley Sinclair and all the drama, with that, or anything about Elon or any of the other kinds of stuff that's going on. It's just all noise, really, for me. I just feel like it's all noise with all that stuff. So good for that. But I do have four topics for you today. Split out. There are two the first one's kind of an entertainment story. Joy Reid being out at MSNBC. Then Dan Bongino is kind of our political story. And so there is that kind of cross-pollination there. Then we have Apple investing in the U.S. as a result of the tariffs that President Trump has put into place, showing that they are effective and not the be-all, end-all doom that all your modern quote-unquote economists were talking about. And then finally, Captain America 4 flops hard in its second week. And I don't think anybody's surprised that is the case. So it is what it is on that. But I do have two stories in front of that. We're obviously continuing to monitor the health of Pope Francis. It was quite a ride this weekend, and a lot of arguments happening on Catholic social media. Of course, there's always arguments on Catholic social media, especially when it comes to the Holy Father. And I'm sorry to say that the Holy Father being sick has actually brought out the worst in a lot of people. And I think they really have to examine their faith, not trying to, cause any kind of drama with them, but I really do think that they need to examine their faith because they are so worried about peripheral issues and, oh, Lord, grant us a pope that's holy and all these other kinds of things. You want my opinion on that? You can check out when I talk with Steve Cunningham on News from the Pew, the opinion on that, and a lot of entitlement from American Catholics. And I'll get off of this and I'll get with our first hot take in one moment. I heard a homily once, and it really defined something for me. And it was a Monsignor, and he was talking about, living here and trying to be your best life. And he said, you really need to pay attention to how people introduce themselves. Are you a Catholic American or an American Catholic? Because the one you choose to describe, you lead off with, is the one that you value more. And I think that's very interesting, that there are a lot of people that are American Catholics. And then there's a lot of people that are Catholic Americans. I'm not here to disparage and not here to sift through who is and who isn't. Believe me, I am the worst of anybody that's being a part of this program right now. But there are a lot of people that are more identifying as American Catholics that are being very, very entitled to what they deserve And I don't think that's the way it works within the Catholic Church. We serve the Lord. The Lord does not serve us. He's not a genie. And I don't want to get off into the weeds, because you're here for, more just kind of overall arching stuff. So I don't want to get too far into the weeds with that. If you want to hear that, you can listen to my show with Steve Cunningham, usually on the end of the week, News from the Pew. Subscribe to that show and you'll listen to all my fresh takes about that. But let's get to our first hot take of the day, and that is Vivek Ramaswamy is running for governor of Ohio. And if you don't believe me, you can watch.
Reviving our conviction in America, we require a leader here at home who will revive our conviction in Ohio. And that is why today I am honored to announce that I am running to be the next governor of a great state at the heart of the greatest nation known to mankind, the state where I was born and raised, the state where Apurva and I raise our two sons today, a state whose best days are still ahead. I am honored to announce my candidacy to serve as the next governor of the state of Ohio.
I don't think it's great. Yeah, it is campaigning season again. You got like a month, and then everybody went back into it. So this is the wrong choice for an Ohio. That was the wrong place to run. If you learned anything, and I have to credit the amazing Magdalene Rose for bringing this up when we were talking about J.D. Vance way back when he was running back in the day, and the style of campaign he was running, because despite the fact that he's very popular now, JD was kind of dragged across the finish line. And she brought this up, and I have to give her credit because she was the first person that ever brought it up, and that is that Ohio residents are very bland. And Ohio conservatives are very bland. Look at Governor DeWine. Look at a lot of their picks. For a deep red state, they like it very, very mayonnaise. They like it very, very plain. And the type of bombastic style that Vivek brings is kind of opposite of what they like. Not because he's brown, but because he's too glitzy. He's too slick, right? There's a lot of places in Ohio where the slick routine doesn't work. There's a lot of places in Ohio where there's a lot of people who are living the blue collar lifestyle, and it will be a challenge for somebody like Vivek to actually resonate. Once again, not because of the color of his skin, but because of his campaign style and the fact that the guy is drenched with money. And then you're calling to his past about how he got that money through pharmaceuticals and all these other things. He really missed his opportunity when he wasn't appointed. See, if he was appointed by the governor, then they wouldn't have had to dig into his past anymore. He could have just kind of stuck himself in the Senate right there, run for re-election, because once you're an incumbent, it's pretty much impossible to pry somebody out of the seat. But running, I don't know how well he does, in that state. I don't. Let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think? Do you think he's a shoo-in? Because it doesn't seem like Trump has a great relationship with him ever since the great foot-in-mouth Christmas debacle that Vivek Ramaswamy decided to engage in. And so it's just interesting to see how this goes. So yeah, it may not be the kind of candidate that people want, may just be the kind of candidate the Republican Party of Ohio is putting forward to run. Maybe. He's got the most name recognition. And then again, we're not even in the primary season for them. He might lose. People think he is a shoo-in for this. I don't believe so. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Vivek does when it's just him. He's not going to be fighting, Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. And he's also not the new kid on the block anymore, right? When he came out of nowhere, when he did the Barack Obama, that's when you need to ascend to office, right? When you're the new kid, you bust on the scene, you need to make your mark immediately, because once you're in office and they put you under scrutiny, it's like, whatever, he's fine, he's doing his job. If you're still running for an office and they can pull through all these things and you're still exposed in a primary, who knows? Who knows how it goes for him later on? But that's our first topic of the night, that Vivek is running, and we'll see how he does. I don't think he is a shoo-in by any means, but, the MAGAs think he may be, and so it is what it is. And, I think it's going to be interesting, too, because the MAGAs right now, and I saw Phil Labonte talk about this Friday on Timcast, and then he reiterated it over the weekend, that, the MAGAs have a big head right now because they're like, we won and we're the reason Trump won. Anybody who's not leftist is a MAGA, and we did it. And Christians don't have enough votes, and if they need to learn that they're a part of our party and we're not a part of their party. I know Phil Labonte is not watching the show, and I don't think Phil Labonte would ever get this clip. And I think that's fine, because I don't think he's worried about somebody like me anyway. But if you look at just the amount of Christians that actually practice their faith, because there's XYZ amounts of Christians, Catholics, evangelicals, whatever the case is, and then there's the people that actually practice it. Basic numbers, raw numbers, like 80 million Christians, one way or another, practice their faith. Let's divide that by half, just to be nice. 40 million, right? Just in a theoretical concept. Let's say 40 million vote left, 40 million vote right. Or that's still 40 million votes that MAGA would not have. Remember, Trump got 80 million? So if Phil Labonte doesn't shut his mouth as far as trying to tell Christians to shut up and know their place and not talk about Elon Musk, or not talk about IVF, or not talk about same-sex marriage. Shut up, you're a part of our party now. Catholics, I would be more than happy to sit out the next election. I don't have to vote, Phil. Okay? My Catholic conscience is not compelled one way or another. There were many good Catholics that decided to sit out of the last election. And I would have no problem sitting out of the next one if MAGA doesn't shut its face and realize that more than half of the voting bloc is some kind of Catholic or Christian. So this idea that we can do whatever we want because it's our party now. If it's your party, then why is there a lot of people in Trump's cabinet right now that are either Catholic or Christian? I don't see many libertarians, homie. You can go back to your little libertarian party if you want. So if Catholics and Christians decided to remove themselves, all you have is a libertarian party again. And that, my friend, is not enough to win. So Tim Pool, Phil Labonte, that dumb lawyer that they had, that Shavornik disciple, y'all better realize that the reason you won is because a lot of Catholics plugged their nose and pulled the lever for Trump. You keep telling us that it's your party and that we need to get used to it, bro. I don't give a rip either way. I'll sit out next time. You need my vote more than you realize. So you need to get it through and they'll try to, I didn't mean it. But if you look at his tweet, and I actually had to put it up on I was like, hey man, 80 million Christians vote. If half of those leave for Republicans, you guys get smoked. Don't get a big head. Don't do that. And also remember, if it means anything, that J.D. Vance is a Catholic. So it's really interesting to see how the MAGAs are kind of swelling right now, because they think that because 25% of former liberals voted for Trump, it's their party. Okay. We'll see how that goes in the midterms, and we'll see who you come crawling back to in the midterms, and we'll see who you come crawling back to in the general. That's all it is. So it is what it is on that. And it's, Phil, you can have your opinion. I really like most of the stuff you said, but that kind of irked me on that one. And I know, once again, nobody's going to send you this clip or this show. So I really don't. And even if I did, if I was sitting on Timcast, I would tell him that right out, because Catholics and Christians are the most persecuted groups in this union, and B, the most taken advantage of. Like, you guys have to vote Republican because you don't want the liberals to win. Listen, bro, if it happens, it happens. I don't care. We survived under Biden. We survived under Obama. If this thing goes off the edge, Catholics will be fine, right? Catholics deal with persecution and stuff all the time. We've survived for 2,000 years. I don't think another 8 years of whatever would have been a big deal. So it's interesting on that part. Sorry to get off on that a little bit. Sorry, we are going to go to Catholic stuff now. We are going to give you an update on what's happening with Pope Francis. So let's move on to that. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of what happened this weekend if you didn't know. So at first, this Saturday, like I said, it was a wild ride for Catholics this weekend as far as the Holy Father. On Saturday, and by the way, they keep doing this thing where, like, he passed peacefully during the night and then woke up this morning. Whoever's in charge of the communications over there, you got to get a better way to do this. You can't keep saying he passed peacefully during the night and then said he woke up and had breakfast, because we're all like, what? Oh, okay. So this was Saturday. He experienced asthma-like respiratory crisis of prolonged intensity, which required the administration of high-flow oxygen. He also required blood transfusions. He remains alert and spent the day in the armchair, although he is in more pain than yesterday. That was Saturday. And then on Sunday, Holy Father condition remains critical. Since last evening, has not experienced any further respiratory crisis. The complexity of the clinical picture, along with the time required for the pharmacological treatment to show results, means that the prognosis is still guarded. Then there was a report that he had renal failure, or he was experiencing controlled renal failure. And people are going, I've never heard of renal failure being a good thing or controlled, but interesting, fine. And of course, with things like this, they're like, oh, my inside source says he's this. My inside source says he's on his deathbed. My inside source says he has 72 hours to live. It's nuts, which is what I'm just trying to stick with Vatican news on this one, because we're on day 10 of Pope Watch. And then next, this was the 24th. The night went well. He's slept and resting. And this brought a lot of people to say, well, you're not telling us anything. You're just saying he slept well. Not great when you start to kind of just say, oh, he's alive. Okay. Is he getting better? Is he getting worse? And then this was also from the 24th. Today, the Holy Father's critical condition, despite its severity, has shown slight improvement. And then in the evening, he called the parish priest of Gaza to express his paternal closeness, which, no matter what you think about the Holy Father, his involvement with the people in Gaza and calling out the genocide that's happening there to the Christians in Gaza, not a lot of Catholics will give him credit for that. So it is very interesting in that regard. So that is, as of right now, I've been checking. Vatican News is starting to talk about other stuff. There was a big rosary for him today at 3 p.m. Eastern time, which was 7 p.m. in Rome, to pray for him. A lot of cardinals were there, and people were praying, and it's been a nice outpouring of support. A lot of Catholics are arguing about who the next pope is going to be. I know we did something very early on, like, hey, this is a conclave, like, to kind of look like a potential picture. And then people are like, oh, you need to pray for his recovery. And so people are saying, well, he's 88 years old, so shouldn't we be saying, hey, if he recovers, that's great, but we should also be praying more likely for the outcome of a holy death and a blessed eternity, no matter what. And it's really messy, because you have a lot of people who have been angry, especially Americans, a lot of American Catholics instead of Catholic Americans, a lot of American Catholics who identify as an American first and a Catholic second. And I'm sorry if you are angry by this. I'm not trying to dismay you. This is just my stupid little opinion in my tiny little studio. Feel free in the comment section down below to light me up. That's fine. Get it out. But there's a lot of Catholics here in America that are so angry with what Pope Francis has done as far as the Latin Mass and some restrictions and some things that are going on, that they cannot wait for him to die. I know there was a post out by the Coalition for Canceled Priests and said, give us a pope, give us a holy pope next time, please. And it's like, bro, A, he's not dead. B, the Holy Father has never, yeah, he did some stuff with the Mass. I get it. I love the Latin Mass too. I just drove Saturday night to go to one. But he's never backed down on pro-life. He's never backed down on same-sex stuff. He's never really, outside of the Mass stuff. And of course, he gets taken out of context a lot by the left, has been a detriment. He hasn't been Benedict the 16th, obviously, but he's not as negative as you would see. Now, some people are going to rip me and be like, oh, Rick, you're such a Pope splainer. Hey, man, I'm just trying to lay it out for you this way. Don't pray for the guy's death. Pray that he recovers. And if he doesn't recover, pray that he is in a state of grace when he meets our Lord. If you don't like him, it is upon you. It is more incumbent of you as a Catholic to pray for him. We need to pray for our enemies. If he is your supposed enemy, which he shouldn't, you should pray for him. You should pray that he meets our Lord in a state of grace. Because it's not the way. And please stop with this. Give us a holy pope. The Pope. Guys, we're going to get the Pope we deserve. Okay? Especially entitled Catholic Americans. You guys think you deserve this and you deserve that. You deserve what God gives us. It is your job to love him, love his son, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and his church. That's all your job is. Once again, you can tell me I'm this, that, and the other thing, and I'm a loser Catholic, and that's fine. You can call me whatever you want if it makes you feel better. But that's just my thoughts on it as we continue to monitor the Holy Father's condition and pray for either his recovery, and if it is his time to go meet our Lord, that he's in a state of grace, that he may be welcomed into the beatific vision. And this will be the last thing. I know I'm rambling, and I apologize because it's not entirely a Catholic audience. But if you're a Catholic and you have a true understanding of what hell actually is, you would never damn anybody to. I mean, obviously, like the super bad people that they, deserve it, quote unquote. But you should never wish for somebody to go to hell. You should never wish that ever on anybody. All right, I'm done. I'm done pontificating, usually, as I say. So, I'm sorry. It was like it was 34 degrees on Saturday. Now it's 75 today. So my nose doesn't know what to do with itself. So if I'm sniffing, I apologize. It's because the weather, and I feel bad. My buddy just came down from Rhode Island this week, last week of all weeks. He's like, I thought the weather was supposed to be good. I said, hey, man, you picked the wrong month. You can't come in February. You can't come in February. We get polar vortexes and ice storms and all this other stuff. But on the other hand, now it's 70. So you should have been here this week. Sorry. My bad. It's Texas, man. It is what it is. If you want warm weather all the way around, see, this is my allergies, man. Go to Brownsville. That's pretty much the only time it's warm. All right. Enough. I'm done. Thank you for letting me blab a little bit here on RickCast. Please, if you like what I'm doing, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, do all the things to help the show continue to grow. I don't have a filter, and apparently 145 of you don't mind me doing it. So I thank you for putting up with me, and let me know if you agree with what I said about the Holy Father or about the Catholics here in America. Please, I got thick enough skin that if you have an opinion different than mine, let me know. And if you want to email it to me, info@thearmedcatholic.com, while it's still thearmedcatholic.com before I change it to something else. But send me an email. Let me know what you think there as well. So it's good to know. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to our first story of the day. Thank you, Steph. I appreciate that. But also I want to be respectful of your time, right? You don't want to just come here and hear me blab for blah, 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 blah amount of time. So let's get to our first story of the day. I try to be respectful of your guys' time because you're here hanging out. So Joy Reid is out at MSNBC as the programming overhaul is happening. Now, there's a lot of people like, this is the change in the culture we deserve, and this is great, and Joy Reid's out. Yeah, Joy Reid's terrible. Don't get it twisted. The lady's awful. She's a race baiter, and she's full of hate. She's just, there's very little redeeming value about her show because it's divisive, and it's not good for anybody. It reinforces negative stereotypes, and she was out there to fulfill that race baiting need. And I don't think it was healthy for anybody. It's not good for the discourse in this union when you have it. Now, there are people on the right that do the same thing, right? But they've been banished to like One America News and Newsmax or YouTube channels. So people follow them if they want to watch them. Joy Reid was on a main platform on cable news where anybody could have access to it. And now if Joy Reid wants to start a podcast that says More Joy or whatever she wants to call it, and she wants to have those opinions, it's her right as an American. She can do whatever the hell she wants on whatever radio, whatever podcast, YouTube channel she wants. I won't care. But when you're on a main cable news outlet, you got to be more careful than how she was. And so I don't think this is the culture change a lot of people are saying. I kind of tend to believe that liberals are like cold sores. They pop up, then they go away, but they never truly are extinct. This is just an overall shift, I believe, also in the cable news era. I think cable news is on its way out, to be completely honest. If you look at the way CNN is reacting, if you look at the way that MSNBC is reacting, if you look at the way that all of these cable channels are reacting, they're kind of dinosaurs in the age of streaming, and that nobody really pays. The only people that watch MSNBC, CNN, Fox, any of those are elderly people that still have cable that just want background noise, or, doctors' offices or airports. They just put something on to have in the background, and they really don't have any use for that. They're essentially the Weather Channel. It's something you put on for your dog when you go out of the house. If you really hate your dog, you would put on Joy Reid. You're a bad dog, you're going to listen to Joy Reid for the hour. No. So it's a major programming overhaul that I think is reflective of the fact that they know that the tone they were using was bad. The message will stay the same, but the tone they are going to use will be less abrasive. This abrasive, in-your-face tone that Joy was bringing, I know I keep saying it, that Miss Reid was bringing, is now obsolete because people overwhelmingly voted against it. So there's a sweeping series of change coming in April. By the way, Joy Reid was making $3 million a year. $3 million a year. Oh boy, would I take a quarter of that. MSNBC has announced major programming moves affecting its weekday and weekend schedule starting in April. The biggest one was the canceling of ReidOut, which saw her 7 p.m. show get canceled after a 5-year run. As a result of these moves, Reid will no longer be a part of the network. With rotating anchors, she had been with the network since 2011, starting as a contributor, then moving on to the show. In addition, Alex Wagner will no longer anchor the 9 p.m. slot. And then other people, blah, 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 who you don't even know who half these people are because nobody watched her show. So, of course, Joy at first was, she went on with a couple people. She went on a call, and this was her response to it. And, you think what you think.
And that, I'm sorry, that what I was doing had value. And in the end, I'm sorry, I try not to cry on TV. And I think this is kind of like me on TV, so I apologize. And then it mattered. I see Karen is there, and she's been texting me as well. And so what I will just say is that in the end, thank you. Where I land is that the moment of guilt that I felt, that I went hard on so many issues, whether it was the Black Lives Matter issues of a young baby or a mom.
See, now the way she's going to dress this up, and damage control is everybody. Everybody has a reason. Well, there's that. She's going to tell you that the reason she was let go is that she was platforming radical ideas, which to anybody who understood MSNBC's mission and the rest of the lineup, would think that's just hysterical in that regard, because she's absolutely 100%. She was put there for that purpose. She was put there to be a representative for the strongest voting bloc of the Democratic Party, which is Black women. This is not me making things up. This is not even a racial thing. If you look at it, it's Black women and the LGBT MAP community are the largest voting blocs, and white women, of course, of liberals. And she was there to represent that, and to direct is a better word to say, to direct Black women on how to feel about the current administration or whatever the case may be, and to warn you of the dangers of Trump and all this other kind of stuff.
Or a dad that was killed, or when we opened up people's eyes to the fact that Asian Americans were being targeted, and not just.
How long did that last? I just would like anybody want to talk about how long Stop Asian Hate actually lasted? Just want to bring that up.
Black folks that, or went hard for immigrants who've done nothing but come to this country like my parents did and try to make a life, and defended them. Or whether we've talked about what the president is doing that is subversive to the Constitution, that is injurious to our liberty.
Ooh, injurious. Oh, sorry.
The Black Lives Matter issues of or went hard for immigrants who've done nothing but come to this country like my parents did and try to make a life, and defended them. Or whether we've talked about what the president is doing that is subversive to the Constitution, that is injurious to our liberty, defending books that people find inconvenient, that.
See, all of these things are great to the liberal audience. They're all great to the liberal audience. The problem is the liberal audience doesn't watch MSNBC. They don't.
Cole Hannah Jones put into our spirit that we need to understand 1619 as the real founding of this country, whether it's talking about any of these issues, and yes, whether it's talking about Gaza, and the fact that we as the American people have a right to object, to little babies being bombed. And
Really?
And where I come down on that is I'm not sorry. I am not sorry that I stood up.
I wouldn't be sorry either if you were paying me $3 million. I try to have principles, but I'm also doing this show for free. I'd like to eventually get paid sometime, somewhere from it. I'm not saying I would sell out for $3 million. I'd say I'd sell out for $15 million. But there is a place, there is a line. You're getting paid $3 million. Of course you're not sorry. $3 million for 5 years.
For those things, because those things are of God.
Which God are you talking about?
And I'm a church girl too. And
whatever church you subscribe to, ma'am, I don't want to, I'm going to shut my face.
Those are the things that I was taught were of God. And so I'm not sorry. I'm just proud of my show.
Well, I'm glad you were, because nobody else was. And that's why you got canceled. I mean, yeah. Where is it? It was up here. Yeah. If you really brought value, like, Ricky Maddow does, or the fact that Ricky Maddow is the greatest thing that they have on that show, they would have found a way to keep her. Because Rachel Maddow makes ungodly amounts of money for working as little as she does. So she's out, and I don't think anybody's sad about it. Just understand that this is not a change in culture. This is a change in the enemy's strategy. This is a change in our political opponent's strategy. They will not be as abrasive. Like Rachel, Ricky Maddow will still continue to be abrasive. That's what she gets paid for. But the fact is, the rest of it will be more tailored to a softer approach, to not be as abrasive, because they are the talking point, the mouthpiece for the Democratic Party. All right, this is RickCast. I'm the aforementioned Rick. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell if you like what we're doing here, and please help this show grow. If you're on the X machine, please re-X or post or whatever the hell Elon calls it. to get a larger sample size. We get more people in here to hang out with us, and we can get everybody else's opinions, and that'd be great too. Let me know on X if you got an opinion. Let me know. I can I get it on the StreamYard. My people on Facebook, all my boomers, hi. And to my one person that watches on Twitch, thank you. You're my lone soldier on Twitch, and I appreciate that. So let's get to our next story of the day, and that is the appointing of Dan Bongino. Now, Kash Patel he was sworn in as the head of the FBI, and he also is now the acting director of the ATF. This could be a good thing. This could be a bad thing, because the ATF under Kash Patel and the FBI, good thing. What happens when Kash Patel's gone? That's the problem. A lot of conservatives are, clapping their hands like seals right now. They're so good. Nah, think of the long game, folks. Think of the long game, because when President AOC shows up in 2028 and she now has a head of the FBI who has control over the ATF, was this a brilliant move? No, it wasn't. Now, Kash Patel dismantles the ATF to a point where it's nothing more than like 5 guys in an office, shooting spitballs at each other all day. That's fine. But I'd like them to do a couple things. I'd like them to delete the registry that exists within the ATF. I don't want to get into it now, but they have said under oath, the ATF has said there is an actual gun registry. They digitized pretty much every 4473 out there, so they can look up the kind of guns you have based on your name and address. They can look them up via the 4473. And it's really interesting that people are clapping for it now, unless Kash Patel dismantles it. And even if he does anything short of abolishing the ATF, it's going to come around whenever Republicans are out of power, because guess what, folks? It's a pendulum. It swings both ways. And the Democrats, despite the fact that everybody's going, oh my gosh, they're not going to win the midterms. Oh, they're in such deep water. Folks, they thought that about the Republicans after Obama got elected. They thought there was no future for the Republican Party after Obama. They thought it was going to be Hillary Clinton to Joe Biden to whoever else to eternity. But it didn't happen that way, did it? So short term, yeah, great. But in the long term, I don't know if this is a great idea. Now, as far as Dan Bongino goes, I'm going to be completely honest with you, because that's what we do here on RickCast. We got 200 people watching across all platforms right now. So thank you guys for spending your Monday with me. I'm humbled that anybody spends time with me. So the fact that you are, it's greatly appreciated. Never been a Dan Bongino fan. Just listen, just like ice cream or pizza or whatever, you have different toppings or things. He's never been my kind of commentator. Hugely popular, very instrumental on getting something like Rumble up and running. And then he's done hi ho, Kermit the Frog here, Crotchy the Elder. Yep, don't like Dan Bongino. I even had the Kermit the Hands go to. But Dan has never been my slice of pizza or flavor of ice cream, whatever you want to call it. Right? He's just, I don't know, whatever the case may be. Man is wildly successful, and he has a big voice in the quote unquote conservative movement. So good for him. Congratulations. And I think that's great. And now he has been nominated, he has been appointed as the number 2 in command at the FBI. Great. I don't really care about this, but this is one of the trending topics, so we're going to talk about it. President Donald Trump on Sunday announced the addition to his Take No Prisoners reform team at the top of the federal government's law enforcement agencies. Let's see if we can get the great. We can get the. Oh, that's right. I'm blocked from Truth Social. Crazy enough, I actually have no access to Truth Social. Great news for law enforcement and American justice! Exclamation point. Dan Bongino, a man of incredible love and passion for our country, has just been named the next deputy director of the FBI. You got to imagine when he puts it in caps that he's screaming. Deputy director of the FBI. By the man who would be the best ever director, Kash Patel. Trump wrote in his Truth Social. I'm not doing it for the rest. You got to, no. Dan has a master's degree in psychology, blah, 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 MBA from Penn State. Great for him. He's part of the New York Police Department and a highly respected special agent with the United States Secret Service. and so forth and so forth and so forth. So he has experience in the federal government. I know a lot of people are going, well, usually somebody in the FBI is directed to be the number two pick. Listen, folks, that's not how this works. The FBI is a corrupt institution. I think we can all agree on that, as they were weaponized 39% or whatever, almost, what was it? It was like, it was some crazy statistic. It was 30% of the FBI was directed to go after grandmas and all these other people in J6. And so obviously the department needs reform. And Kash Patel is a great pick. And Dan Bongino is an outsider who has experience in the government. So he knows how it works, and they can do what they can do to reform it. If you've listened to this show, I thank you. I think you can get rid of the FBI altogether because you have the U.S. Marshals, right? You have multiple law enforcement agencies at the federal level. There's no reason to have the FBI and the U.S. Marshals and everything else that exists. Too much overlap. I think the U.S. Marshals could handle most of what the FBI does. But I'm sure somebody in the comment section, let me know if that's a wrong opinion. I think it's correct, but you can tell me why we need the FBI when we have the U.S. Marshals. And so it's one of these things that's just very interesting in my look. Blah, 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 blah. There's the True Social post. The move comes days after Patel sworn in as the FBI's director. Dan Bongino's podcast, he spoke about Patel and the FBI. Kash Patel is the one reason he is there to make the FBI great again. I think it should be abolished, but whatever. He's a change agent. How amazing would it be in 4 years to look back with a good high quality reformed FBI free of woke culture and DEI that goes out making headline, big arrest for real bad guys, destroying your community. How good would that be? So once again, I don't have strong opinions on Bongino. I've never listened to him. I know there are some people that are like, Bongino's the greatest. He's got inside information. He used to guard Obama and Hillary and all this other. Great. Good job. The guy's obviously successful. I will give him this, though. Kind of in the way, and this is, if you think this is sycophantic, let me know. But just like Trump could have easily stayed out of politics. Guy's a billionaire. He has no reason with his supermodel wife and his 9-foot tall kid to get into politics. He didn't have a reason to go back. Well, the second time because he was being chased around, but he never had to get into it in the first place. He actually uses less. He loses money by going in office. Bongino makes the same choice here. Bongino loses money by leaving the very lucrative TPUSA, Conservative USA, speaking book podcast circuit. For the guys at the top, it is a life-changing experience, right? There is more money than they know what to deal with. And Bongino's work to make his podcast noticeable and all this other stuff. So I have no problem with that. I will give the man credit for leaving a very comfy position at the request of Kash Patel to go work back in the federal government, because anybody that's ever worked in any government, doesn't matter if it's local or federal, knows it kind of sucks. Unless you're part of the USAID people where you're just kind of making $250,000 a year to push papers and like give sex change books in Ghana or whatever the case may be. But most of it's kind of just, not very fun work. And he's going to be facing resistance while he's there. So good for Bongino for taking the challenge, I guess you could say. But outside of that, I have no opinion on it, except that it is another part of this kind of a very notable team of people that have been out there. I'm not going to call them podcasters because that's not fair to Bongino. He's actually built something. When you say podcaster, it sounds like somebody like me who kind of just sits in a room and whines on the internet for an hour every day. Where it's going to this idea. Now, yeah, he could easily, Steph makes a point if he says, Rich, he could set himself up after his term to make just as much money as a former FBI guy. I guarantee it. There will be money waiting for him on the other side. That's not a judge. That's just correct. But still, to leave a comfortable position to go back into government, I don't know if I would do it. I'd be like, yeah, thanks, Trump, but I'm good over here. You do your thing. I'm just gonna stay over here and rail, do my podcasting job or my editorial job. But good for Bongino. He is now the second in command at the FBI, and we wish him as much luck as he needs. This is RickCast. I am the aforementioned Rick. Like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell. If you like what we're doing to make this show grow with as many people as possible watching, and I appreciate every single person that is watching the show tonight. I thank every single one of you for taking the time to hang out with me, and it's an honor. It's an honor. You guys on YouTube, you guys are killing it as always in the chat. My Rumble guys, you're a little quiet tonight. That's okay. I don't mind you guys being quiet. X is a little quiet as well. That's fine. You guys do what you got to do as well. As long as you're watching, that's cool. If you want to drop a comment in, I'd love to see it, and I'd love to read it and let you know what you think with the stories that we're talking about today. That's it for like the politics stuff. We're going to get into some business and some entertainment stuff as well, because I never want this to just be politics, because it's boring and it's annoying at some point. So let's get to our third story. It's kind of a political one, but it's also an example of business. So Apple is going to hire 20,000 workers as part of a $500 billion investment in these United States. This is a result of the tariffs. So this is kind of the thing that, people who were more pro-tariff, I don't know if I was pro or negative. I was kind of neutral on it, leaning to pro. Like, I don't mind if we kind of exercise some power within economic routes, because we've been kind of taken advantage of. Canada, Mexico, all these, China, Japan, England, all these countries enact tariffs on us. And since we have such a major economy, we kind of just, take one on the chin. We're like, that's fine, as long as you can do whatever you want to do. Like in Japan, you don't see a lot of American cars there because of the tariff system. And there's a lot of other things that these other countries do to promote, investment in, domestic investment and domestic products in their countries. That's their right. These United States has every right to do the same. And that's something that I like to see in this regard. And you're starting to see some benefits of it. 20,000 workers here in these United States is supposedly, wrong one. Yeah, well, the people who are working government jobs, they can learn to code, or they can go work in the fields, or they can find other jobs. They're fine. I'm sure Apple's getting some kind of cut out of this. There's no way they're going to put $500 billion into the U.S. without getting something back, right? You scratch my back, I scratch yours. Trump gets a headline, they get a subsidy. It all works out. But let's see. Apple announced a series of U.S. investments on Monday, totaling up to $500 billion, including the hiring of approximately 20,000 research and development workers. Let's see how many of those are H-1Bs. The investment will impact Apple's content creation. Funding shows for its Apple TV Plus, which, by the way, I actually watched The Gorge this weekend. It was fine. I'd probably give it like 3.5 out of 5 popcorn buckets or whatever, 3.5 out of 5. It was weird, but it was entertaining for a streaming movie, as well as new initiatives around AI. Plus the development of large-scale factory here in Texas. Great. Just what we need, another stupid factory here. The news is welcome update regarding the hiring and tech investment, which will impact the company's supply chain across these United States. Last week, Apple CEO Tim Cook met with President Donald Trump to address the potential Chinese tariffs on manufacturing, move that could impact the company's cost structure. According to reports, over 95% of its AirPods, Macs, and iPads are made in China. Additionally, the company sells more iPhones in China than in these United States. Well, that's a weird statistic, because there's like 500 billion people in China, right? Versus 330 million people here. So odds are, even if they're going to sell more. So there is what there is in that regard. It's a good look for Trump. You'll probably see more things like this. And that's the ultimate goal with the tariffs, is to bring back some manufacturing here. There's no reason that all the manufacturing can be shipped offshore into other countries, and they can be done here, especially when you have a country. Well, I mean, Apple is a GDP unto itself. But when you have a company like Apple, who has so much money on demand, and then they have so much cash on hand, that they can absorb tariffs, they can absorb a little bit more of cost structure to get their products out to the public. So it is what it is. Well, I just explained, Steph, that I'm neutral leaning to pro. I think that there is more advantages for these United States to enact tariffs than not, because we are the only country that doesn't really enact tariffs. Every other country enacts tariffs on us, and we don't do it back to them because our economy is that. I'm sorry, it's my dog. She like rips up the couch, and so I have like hairs everywhere. And so I think it's fine that we do a little bit of tariffing because everybody else gets benefits of manufacturing. Everybody else gets the benefits of the jobs. Everybody else gets the benefits of these things. And we kind of just have to sit here and be like, okay, well, we don't have people working. You have people working. We don't. Why can't we have some of these jobs as well? It's something that can be at least looked at. So it's all right in that regard. Will we see more companies do this? Probably, maybe not to the amount that Apple is doing here. It is interesting that this is phased over 4 years. It's not something that's immediate. So that if Trump, or when Trump leaves, because he's only here for 4 years, and a Democrat comes into office in 2028, let's say President AOC comes into office, or President Jasmine Crockett comes into office, they can reverse those and Apple can just shove their stuff back overseas. So it's interesting how they're phasing that as well. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes going forward. All right, I am RickCast, and I am the RickCast. I am Rick here at RickCast. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell to continue this show doing as well as it is doing. So that's an interesting question. I actually think Apple has enough money that it will survive the streaming wars. I think it will be Apple, Disney, Universal, and Amazon. Those will be your 4 companies that are left in the streaming wars because they are the ones that have the most available cash. It's when you look at it that way, they're the ones that have the most cash on hand. Amazon can absorb losses because all the movies they put out, like Red 1, the Christmas movie, it was not designed to do well in theaters. Everybody's like, oh, it crashed and it didn't do well in the box office. It wasn't supposed to. It was supposed to be a streaming movie all along. That's why it was only in theaters for 2 weeks. Then they shoved it onto streaming because Amazon makes movies to do what, folks? Wait for it. Sell stuff on Amazon. Amazon makes movies so they can be streamed on Amazon Prime. So that way, when there's like, oh, look at this Samsung TV that's behind me, boom, there's another pop-up window, and then you purchase it from Amazon. That's all Amazon makes these movies for. They have enough available cash on hand to put out as many crappy movies as they want or crappy TV shows. Apple just has mountains of cash on hand anyway, that I have a feeling they will probably purchase like Paramount or Lionsgate or some of these other distribution and movie houses that are just begging to be bought at this point. Yeah, Disney is tanking under Iger, and their parks are struggling, but they still have enough name recognition. Their catalog is big enough that if somebody, as soon as Iger leaves and somebody who is not completely stupid writes the ship, I think they can reascend pretty quickly. Yeah, the parks thing is crazy the way they've done that because it's not, they really messed up the park experience. And I don't want to get into it, but you're right, Michael. That was their cash. That is their cash cow. Kind of like how Amazon makes movies to sell stuff on Amazon. Disney makes stuff so you buy their crappy stuff at the parks. Think about this. The Lilo and Stitch movie that's coming out, I think this year, the live action one, that one's going to make $1 billion. And they're going to sell so many stupid Lilo and Stitch dolls. It's not even going to be a problem with them. So they're going to be fine there. And of course, Universal's probably going to buy Warner Brothers at some point this year. And what was the last one I said? It was Universal, Disney, Universal, Amazon. So they're all going to be fine at some point. I think Disney's going to probably turn it around within the next 2 years. Because I don't think Iger's taken so much heat at this point. He's got to bail out, and they're trying to find anybody to right this ship. I could be wrong, but I don't think Disney is going to be bought by they just have too much invested in everything that I don't think all it takes is one productive summer, right? If this Daredevil Born Again series does well, that could be good for them. And then if Fantastic Four does all right, they could see themselves on a little bit of an upward track. You know what doesn't help though, and this is what we call, folks, a seamless transition. Captain America 4 bombing does not help the Disney machine because it doesn't look good. They've got some really bad movies coming up. They've got this, and then they've got the Thunderbolts, which is actually the Dark Avengers, which is actually testing okay, but I don't think that's going to be a massive hit. Fantastic Four, everybody's kind of waiting on to see how badly that does or not do, because they're kind of waiting on that. And then, of course, there's the multiple Avenger movies coming down the line. So a lot I think there's like Avengers, Secret Wars, and like Double Avengers or whatever it is. I think you're going to see a hard reset on the Marvel Universe after that, because Feige's taking it on the chin with this one, because this movie was an absolute disaster. An absolute disaster. This movie was shot with the intention of Kamala Harris winning, and the new age of Kamala and all of these other things. Oh yeah, apparently this movie called The Monkey is pretty funny, but it was supposed to be released after, yeah, that's right, after Donald Trump lost, and then he didn't lose, and it looked like the whole ideas that they were trying to push in the Captain America movie, they shot the movie almost 3 times. They shot two separate movies for Captain America because of the changes. And people who've seen it says it's blatantly obvious, because the thing is just it's like Jigsaw all over the place. And you can see that in the fact that this movie dropped pretty hard. So staying at the top spot, a 68% tumble. Now, the way drops work with films, first weekend it comes out, it makes 100 million. A successful hold, they call it, is anything 50% and under. Anything above 60% is an absolutely disastrous hold, and it shows that the movie does not have the legs needed to recoup the box office. Now, it made 100 million in its first week, but then it tumbles to 28 million the second week. This movie is at least 400 million plus as far as in the tank, advertising, whatever the case may be. Projections were saying that they were going to have to make somewhere between 900 million to $1 billion to even sniff some kind of return on this. And there's no way that's going to happen. When you have 4,000 screens and $28 million, $6,000 per screen is not going to get it done. It's just not going to get it done. And it doesn't matter what kind of spin they want to put on it. So even at 141 million, that 141 million does not stay with the Disney Corporation. They got to give it to the exhibitioners. Then there's other licensings and other things that they have to give it to. Everybody thinks, oh, they got the 141 million back. And that's not true. Some say half, some say 30%, whatever the case may be, whatever that math is, it goes to the distributors, the exhibitioners, the movie theaters, and so forth. And then they got to take cuts out for producers and other kinds of things, whatever, paying back royalties. So that 141 is not all the way back to it. So it's ahead of the Incredible Hulk, which is universally panned, the Marvels, which everybody hated. And it's just, you can't make a movie for $400 million and then get $7 million on a Friday. That's just, it's not going to cut it. That's not, you would like a $7 million hold in week 5. That would be fantastic. If your movie's making $7 million 5 weeks after its release, you're doing something good. That means the holds were pretty solid. $7 million on a Friday in its second week. This movie is DOA. So Disney was likely bracing for a serious drop on this title after wretched reviews and MCU record low audience scores last weekend. Fortunately, it held stronger than the Marvels and the Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's not great, because this is 68% versus 70%. It's not like it's a chasm between the two of them. This is actually pretty disastrous. So Brave New World feels like a piece of all those other MCU black sheep in an overarching narrative of post-Endgame lack of focus or payoff for the Marvel brand. And that's why they're just trying to get Fantastic Four out. They're trying to get to Avengers and Secret Wars so they can do a hard reboot on the entire MCU and try to salvage this thing on. What the MCU should do, they're not going to listen to me, because why would they? Is what they needed to do after Endgame was take like a 3-year break. They were riding high, and unfortunately, because in the age of streaming content and you got to push these things out and blah, 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 they need to take a hard 2 to 3 year break, let the anticipation build, and then come out while they refigured out what to do post Endgame. And then they would have been fine, but they just kept churning things out. They kept pushing ahead, and eventually nothing lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever, and we're seeing that right now. And they've done so much damage to the brand. Feige has done it. Kevin Feige, Feige's done it, Iger's done it, DEI across Disney has done it, that it's really hard for them to try and, fix this. You can't fix it on the fly. You got to take a step back. Look at what the Disney Corporation has done to Star Wars, which was arguably a more recognizable intellectual property than Marvel. They've completely destroyed that thing. They don't even know what to do with it at this point because there's no way to salvage it. They've ruined the brand so badly. And they're about to do this with Marvel unless they can get a nice turnaround with the Thunderbolts and then maybe with Fantastic Four. If they can limp into Secret Wars, have a really good hard reset, and maybe go from there. I'm not holding my breath because I don't really care anymore about Marvel movies, but this is very interesting to see them try to spin this because it's just not doing well. And you can't try to change this stuff on the fly because it never works that way. There's too many connections, there's too many streaming shows, there's too many of all of this that it's like watching a NASCAR crash. It's just rolling and rolling and rolling. The cars hit the wall and it's in the grass and it's just continuing to roll. And there's no way to get out of that death spiral right now as currently constructed. And this result is what we're going to see. All right, folks, that's it. We've gone. Once again, I gave you 11 more minutes. I spoiled you people. Do me a favor. Thank you, first of all, for hanging out with me. Second thing you could do for me is like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell on YouTube and on Rumble. Let me know that you guys appreciate it by leaving a comment in the comment section down below. My 2 people watching on Facebook, hey, leave me a comment on Facebook. Let me know that you're watching, or give me that like button. Mark Zuckerberg would love it if you hit that like button. And then you go to like 5 more jiu-jitsu classes because of it. If you're on the X machine, retweet for a larger sample size. I will talk to you all tomorrow. I'm going to keep my eye on the Pope Francis thing. So I will let you know. You can follow me on Twitter or on Instagram. Stradcat, like strategy. Stradcat is both for Instagram and for X. I will talk to you all tomorrow. God bless. And until that day comes, free Dexter Taylor.